But I'm relatively certain that the big brains that we develop, which were necessary for social learning, which were also necessary for having children, human infants require nurturing for a year. But many animals don't. And that puts a biological constraint that's very important. It means, in some sense, it puts a requirement on humans to have social learning. I mean, a giraffe gets up and walks the minute day it's born, within an hour of being born. A human being um, uh, is helpless, and so social learning required communication and a group to be able to take care of a child. And so our brains developed, I think, probably in response to that evolutionary imperative, which is biological in origin. I mean, one feeds the other, of course. The ability to have social learning allowed humans to um, have babies with bigger brains, which required um, evolution of the human body and other things. But the ability to do calculus is an aside. It wasn't nature didn't intend for us to do calculus or do science, and of course that's been a blessing, and some people would say a curse as well. It's remarkable that we have developed consciousness. Now, it's not clear, as you know from reading my book, it's not clear what consciousness is. I don't even have a good definition of it. And it's certain that animals, my dog who's sleeping here next to me, has has uh, has undoubtedly some level of consciousness. I know it when I look at him in the morning. Not the same level as I do of self-awareness. But whatever it is, whatever level of neural complexity that allows us to have consciousness is amazing. Allows us to ask questions about the universe, to look up. I always try and get my dog to look up at the sky, and he doesn't. Not interested in the stars. And the ability to ask questions about, are we alone, and what's out there, and how do we begin? These amazing questions that we are fortunate enough to be able to ask, and even more fortunate enough to be able to explore and answer, is all an evolutionary accident, I think. And it may be, in the long run, an evolutionary mistake, because it's a double-edged sword. As a lot of people say, these big brains that we have allowed us to open up a universe that we never would have imagined and ask questions about the universe from the beginning to the end, but they've also produced a civilization that can do abysmal things and that can self-destruct, can have war, as you're experiencing in Ukraine right now, the worst of humanity. And there's a book by Kurt Vonnegut, another person who's influenced me. I actually met him too. A lovely writer, and if you've never read him, you should read Kurt Vonnegut. But there's one of his books that I only read when we went to the Galapagos. It's a book about the Galapagos. It's a story. It's a novel, and it's the protagonist, the speaker, is this being from 2 million years in the future, when humans have unevolved back to basically seals, more or less. Like, and he talks about the big brains back in our time, and how the big brains caused all these problems, and life is so much better for them now that they don't have the big brains. So having the big brains is wonderful, and some people will also say a curse at the same time. And I think we have to recognize that it's up to us. We have the wonderful ability to use our big brains in one direction or another, and science is the epitome. But science and music, literature are the best parts of being human. But along with that come the worst parts of being human. Well, look, I think we all have the illusion that we're the first ones to think of things, and we are strongly influenced by many things we know of and we don't know of. I love books. I have thousands of books in my house, and I recognize that I am a product of the books I read. I read voraciously as a child, but it is true that that for one reason or another, because of, I think, new experiences and new observations, we are driven to new things. If we didn't experiment, scientists would never come up with anything new. Okay, I really mean that, including Einstein and Newton. The world of our experience gives us new insights that we wouldn't have otherwise. But it's also true that science isn't done in a vacuum, and there's a community. People don't realize science is a social activity. So it's not surprising that many key ideas are being considered independently by many people. Even Einstein, who's the prototypical example of someone who people think of as being, sort of working alone in a room, even he was influenced by, of course, the generations of other physicists. And science is social, and I have recognized in my career how many times when we did something, we discovered, oh, there's someone else thinking exactly the same thing. It's wonderful, but what changes it from just being recursive to looking at our navels and going and doing the same thing over and over again is nature, is experiment, because that brings nature surprises us. The imagination of nature is bigger than our own. And so that's what keeps it going to new things. I mean, the one time, let me just finish. The one experience, I mean, I've had a few experiences in my life, but the one that's most dramatic for being sort of one of the first people to recognize something about nature was dark energy. And and in 1995, when we published our results, no one really believed it. I'm not sure I did. And then 3 years later, it was discovered to be true. Um, but that was an instance where I had a talk, maybe I think was one of the first people to understand something about nature, but there were other people who were thinking similar things. And it's amazing. But again, I was driven to that kicking and screaming by experiments, not just sitting in a room thinking. Nothing really new comes from revelation. Nothing. Wisdom maybe, but not new knowledge. And new knowledge only comes from observation and experiment.